Today we're going to talk about my dad and that experience, healing my relationship with my dad through music. My name is Andrea Belita. This channel is for songwriters in their 30s and beyond who play an instrument, use a Mac, want to release more often, who chose another career or family, but have always written songs and now feel like more of a call to actually do something about them and do more with them or do more with music. So if that's you, you are in the right place. I believe music is for you. Like, your songs are for you. And yes, we humans connect in a beautiful way through music. And when other people make music that really resonates with us, it can be incredibly healing and comforting and soothing and exciting, and you want to dance, and there's all kinds of things you can experience when you listen to music. So I believe music is for healing, for connecting, for processing emotions, and for manifesting your future. I use it very intentionally, very deliberately. It's like my constant, it's like a companion to me that feels like someone always sees me. Like, my songs see me, they understand me. And today, as I share this story about my dad, it has a lot to it, because it starts out, my story with my dad starts out as me with like really looking up to my dad. And as a little girl, I felt safe when my dad would hold me in his arms. And I remember just snuggling with him and felt he was so big and strong, and it made me feel so safe. And I thought my dad could do anything. And I really loved and adored my dad, loved and adored my mom. And when I grew older, became a teenager, my dad and I started fighting a lot more, because he had a lot of fears. And I learned a lot more. The more I grew and understood more about myself, the more I understood about my dad. And that was hard. I was very much a rule follower, because I knew that's how you get the most approval. So I was very good at that. And at the time, I didn't think, this is how I get approval. I just knew, you set that rule, I can follow that rule. Our family was very religious, like very religious. I grew up Mormon, but I would say ultra religious, like very dogmatic, very kind of like very black and white thinking, very intense. Like, if I went and bought a new shirt from JCPenney, I was going to get a lecture on pride from my dad. He was very black and white thinker. He, I think, lived with a lot of insecurity and a lot of fear that he could never measure up. And so that really translated into how he parented me. I didn't see this until a lot later, but I could see my dad for what it was, for who he was, which was in part just like sad little boy. Yeah, I could see through him. Needless to say, we didn't get along in high school for like the last couple of years of my high school years. I got voted in as homecoming queen candidate, and I asked him to walk me out on the field, and he was huffing and puffing the whole time because he thought that I just wanted attention. And I didn't even know me getting voted in for this kind of thing was even ever on the like possibility list for me. I never even dreamed of it, because I just didn't care. I never saw myself in that light, like that I was homecoming queen candidate material. And so when he accused me of trying to get attention, it was hurtful. And that he didn't enjoy the experience because he thought I was being prideful. And that all roots back down to his religious beliefs of essentially, you are bad. You are inherently bad, and you need to fix yourself all the time. That is the essential belief. I believe we are extremely worthy in every way, and that we can become who we envision to be with daily effort. And so instead of placing ourselves in the lower position, I just place us in like a standard, we are in a level position. and that we can do things to lose trust in people, or we can do things to gain trust in people. And we can do things that help us build our reputation or help us diminish a reputation, ultimately that comes back to trust. So high school was super hard. I moved away, couldn't wait to get out of the house. Saw him, like, I had siblings and nieces and nephews who lived with us, for part of my high school years. They were just absolutely so adorable. But I had a hard time with how my dad grandparented them and basically parented my older sibling and their spouse to not be compassionate to their kids. And it was really, really hard to grow up in that environment. So I couldn't wait to get out of the house because I had a hard time seeing that. And once I left, time went on. I graduated college. I was the youngest of 7 who went to college. And that was a big deal for me because our family, I was super embarrassed of my home life. My dad was a pack rat and hoarder. So our house was gross. Like, we had carpet but no vacuum because we didn't have electricity. Oh yeah, I forgot that part. We didn't have electricity. We built our own log house out of logs that my dad got from the mountains. He was a logger. And then we didn't have running water for a couple years. And we didn't have electricity. And I was just incredibly embarrassed of my house, not because of the water and electricity, but because it was so messy. And because it was just full of stuff. I mean, you'd walk in the house and the first thing you see on the right is the wood stove, and right next to that is the bathtub with no curtain around it. There was no privacy. There was no consideration for privacy. It was hard. It was hard to grow up in that as a teenager. And I felt just generally uncomfortable around my dad. The fact that my privacy was not respected. And yeah, I mean, I didn't go to bed till 10 o'clock at night because we just didn't eat dinner until then. My dad would get done working on vehicles at 10 o'clock at night and expect us to wait up and then go to bed, wake up and feed the roosters, and then at 6 a.m. go to seminary for church, and then go to school. And I was always a hard worker. I did really well in school. I was deep in my religion and loved it. But then as time went on, graduated college as an elementary teacher and got my first job right before I graduated. I was so proud of myself, and I was a 3rd grade teacher. And then after that, I went on to serve a mission for my church for 1.5 years in Scotland. And that 1.5 years, I was 24 when I went. And that 1.5 years had a lot of challenges, and it had a lot of learning. And I think it was finally on my mission that I felt comfortable telling people about my family, because it was so embarrassing. My dad didn't treat my mom very well. He was mean to her, very critical all the time, very critical of all of us all the time. Like, I had to maintain a certain level of weight. If I didn't, I had to go run laps. Same with my mom. And it was, everything was very tightly monitored growing up. So having the freedom, I knew that going and having the freedom on my own was going to require for me to just continue to be disciplined in some ways, just to maintain kind of life. I knew my dad had good intentions for me, wanted me to be a healthy weight, but he didn't go about it very well. And when I was 28, my dad went to prison. I found out some stuff that my brother and I then had to do something about. So we did. We turned him in. And that was a whole story in and of itself, trying to get that taken care of. And then he was in prison for 8 years. And I visited him every 6 months to a year. Even though I lived in Georgia, I lived in Colorado, I lived in different places, California, I still go back to visit him. And it's basically comes down to my belief that every person deserves love, no matter how difficult they are. I don't think that I've even painted a real picture of how hard my dad was to live with, but he was extremely difficult. And my confidence was pretty low. Outwardly I seemed confident, but it took a lot of work. Still does. I live with a lot of insecurities, but I'm not sure that I'm unique that way. I think most humans do, even if they grow up with healthy experiences. I'm not sure. I think we just all, it's ingrained in us. Somehow we're just inherently a little bit insecure. Actually, if you aren't, I'd love to know that, because I actually want to know if you ever, if there are people who are never insecure. That'd be interesting. I haven't met one yet. So if that's you, then let me know. If it's not you and you want to share the ways that you've been insecure, I would love to hear those, because yeah, insecurity is just hard. One of the reasons I was so insecure was because I'm blind in my left eye. I was born with a cataract, so I can't see out of this eye. If you close your left eye like this, that's what it's like for me to see all day, every day. And for the longest time, I was very, very self-conscious of it, because kids notice this kind of stuff and they always ask. And it's fine. They should ask. But I was just embarrassed at always getting asked. But when I became an adult, when I was in 9th grade, and a girl was like, she's like, oh my gosh, I love your eye. It's so cool. And I was like, oh, thanks. And she was so nice about it and so genuine and authentic. I was like, oh, like, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe I can change the way I look at it. And I also have like a white spot on my leg. So I have vitiligo. I have a big white spot. And so when I'd wear shorts, I always felt like I had to turn my body and turn my leg so people didn't see it. So those were two big things that just visibly, I didn't want people to see. Seeing how much he criticized everybody else added to my insecurity. And I just had a hard time kind of feeling like I could be good enough. So when he went to prison, that was actually a liberating moment for me and my family, because we had a chance to finally explore ourselves without being criticized for every little thing. Like if I wore black, I didn't get called, I don't know, evil. I didn't get accused of following Satan. Things like that were just always there. So I would go to visit him, and I wanted him to still feel like he had people in his corner. He had people that he could know loved him and cared about him. That was important to me. I was like, if I ever felt isolated and lonely, I would hope I had maybe one person who cared about me. So I always wanted to make sure that I treated him better than he treated me. That as an adult woman, that I could show him what it was like to actually treat people well. And when he got out, I continued to helped him get settled, would go visit him once or twice a year. Finally, there was a song that I had written called Find My Heaven, and I wrote it when my dad went to prison. And I wrote it from my mom's perspective, as if it were me going through that experience. And my mom didn't like it because it had the word hell in it. And as a religious person, you don't ever, I don't know, it's just, even though it was in context, it just didn't, it said, you can go to hell. And she didn't like that, because she was always trying to be compassionate and Christ-like, and that didn't seem like something Christ would do in her eyes. So I just had to play the song for myself as my own therapy. And I would play it and I would cry, and I would cry so hard. And I would just imagine myself, because it was me, essentially. It was me in this, but it was also a way for me to be like, I will never have this kind of relationship. I will never get myself to a place where I am held back by somebody else. And Find My Heaven ended up being like one of my favorite songs. And when I eventually did play it on my house concert tour, it was well received, because the story behind it is so powerful. And when I never wanted to take it to a studio, because I was afraid that people wouldn't like the song, or that I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to tell if they liked the song. I was afraid, like, oh, if I take it to a studio and they don't say anything about it, well, this is a very, very vulnerable place for me. That now all we're doing is talking about the technical pieces. Like all we're doing is talking about beats. We're not actually talking about the song and how deep it is and how important it is. That felt too sanitized for me. Like I needed that song to be in really, really safe hands. I had producers I was working with that I really liked, that I knew respected me. But if I couldn't have a really deep, vulnerable conversation about my song, I didn't want the technical piece with them. So I just never took it to a studio, but it always felt unfinished. I knew it needed to be produced and released. I knew it had to be. Well, about a year after my dad came home from prison, I decided I was going to go into music. I was going to figure this thing out and I was going to pursue it more. And that was super hard because I didn't know what direction I wanted to go. I just knew I needed to make more music, and I started writing like crazy, wrote like 40 songs in a year. And then the next year I started learning how to produce, and then I learned how to mix and master. And then eventually that song was one of the first that I decided that I needed to produce, mix, and master. And honestly, I didn't actually mix and master that one myself. I produced it and then I sent it to somebody to mix. That song is incredibly powerful for me. I love the way that I produced it because I added in different things that were meaningful about my parents' relationship. So like they like the song, "Let Me Call You Sweetheart, I'm in love with you." And when they were doing good, they would joke and like sing that little song to each other or whatever. But that was so rare. And so I kind of did like a little like a little bell like as part of like the beginning intro, as almost like nostalgic to the winds of yesterday when we wanted things to be good but they never were, kind of thing. And then the like organ in the bridge or somewhere near the middle and end of the song, I put organ in, and that was sort of an ode to religion and how they had been so deep in religion, but the religion was the thing that was keeping them divided as a family, keeping the family divided because there was so much judgment attached to that perspective that they were using from religion. Not that every person who is in religion is that level of judgmental or uses it as a weapon, but in this case it was used as a weapon. And in this case, it was used as constant judgment and constant belittling. And this is, and I don't speak for all Mormons when I'm telling this experience, but this is definitely my experience. And this is the way that I eventually made some shifts out of religion. That's for a different story. But my song that I produced was such a powerful experience for me. So much release. I would go to produce and I would just be crying, just like releasing all of it. I had been playing that song for a decade on the guitar. And let's see. Sitting in this trailer of torn down hopes, promised me a house of logs, just a place where I could sit to sew. All the money we get, you blow like a hot shot, have to sneak some way, as it's the only freedom I've got. So that's the beginning of Find My Heaven. And I would play that song over and over and over again for years. And when I finally produced it, it felt complete, but I had to release it. So I released it, and then I told the story, and it was the most liberating experience I've ever had in my whole life. Being able to free my story, free that song, and ultimately free myself. And that's why I feel like music can be incredibly healing when it's used intentionally for that purpose. Because as I went from songwriting and using that as my therapy, I have a song called Songwriting as a Therapy, which I will share at some point. I use that song to basically tell my story over and over and over and over again. Do you know this is actually a thing? In therapy, a lot of times people cannot, you know how like when you go through something hard, you need to complain about it like 45 times, maybe not 45, but like 5 times. Like you tell your one friend, then you tell your another friend, and then you tell someone else, and then you tell that one friend again, and they're like, then you tell that one friend again, and they're like, come on, just move on, because they don't want to hear it so many times. But the thing is you have to tell it until you're done telling it. And that is how it works with a lot of people, because we need to feel seen and heard and understood, and like somebody understands us and gets us. And for me, when I played that song, I would play it over and over and over. And that's not the only song. I will play certain songs over and over and over because I need to hear it and understand it. And I need to process these feelings. And that particular song was like, it was telling my story in a deep and profound and vulnerable way. And then I was able to produce it, kind of materialize it into what I envisioned it could be. And then I got to just like release it like a little bird into the wild to kind of do its thing. And I got to watch it. And you know what? It was almost like it was like a little bird in a cage, like a little story in my heart that I couldn't let go of. And once I materialized it into what I envisioned it could be, and then I released it with its story, and I said, "You're free now." It was so relieving. And that is a gift to me, because I wouldn't know that 2 years later, my dad would pass away. My dad died 2 years later. And honestly, after I released that song, I could interact with my dad differently. I was doing a lot of healing on my own and just really trying to kind of make sense of my whole life experience with my dad. And because I was doing all of that work, and because I let that song go, I could finally just have a relationship with my dad, and I could see and appreciate how my dad had changed. And I could see him for more of who he was. And there would be things that would, there were things to work through, but we did. And I would coach him on how to respond more emotionally intelligently. There are things that I would teach him, and that he was open to learning. And this was a new experience, but I don't think I could have done that had I not written the song and released it. Not just the writing. I had to do more than just writing, because it wasn't done. The writing was only part of that process. I had to get to the release. So this is actually why I decided to build this program and course, because this whole process is such a powerful one for me. Not just the writing of the song, but all the way getting it to release, and being able to actually do that process myself was like, I couldn't have done it without that. I would not have taken that to anyone I knew. I didn't know anyone that I felt comfortable taking that song to. And now I've released it, and you can go listen to it if you want to. If you do, just like go and listen to it and just imagine the story. It's a gift to be able to have released it. Thanks for listening. I'm glad you're here. I also have a free guide if you want to check that out. It is to help you get your song to production ready. There is some refining that I think is really important, and I wanted to help you with that. So hope you enjoy it. Oh, and if you want a free masterclass to hear more about my program, then please go check it out. You want to see this cute kid?